So very simply, Digital India is an experience where technology has pretty much invisibly become a core part of our lives. When it comes to technology, we are not just the world's largest digital transformation taking place, but we are the world's largest digital transformation taking place that is leaving no person behind. Truly inclusive.
What have you observed or learned about from Prime Minister's own leadership style?
I just love how he thinks about technology and how he thinks of it as an enabler. The questions and the conversations he has is always about unlocking its full potential. What is needed, right? What do you have to do with talent? How much talent do you have to build? What kind of ecosystem has to come in place? His ability to really see what maybe others are not seeing and, have that big vision. That vision of ensuring that every single person is enabled or empowered by technology, right? And to ensure that the last woman, the woman who's sitting furthest away, is not left out of it.
Hello and welcome to New India Junction's podcast with Ananya. Today we are talking to Debjani Ghosh. Now, who is Debjani Ghosh? She is the first woman president of Nasscom. Previously, she's also led Intel India, and she oversees and gives strategic direction to member companies, to the sector, to the tech sector on how to digitally transform themselves and the country. So yes, a lot of questions, and I know that this is a Monday morning and we have a hard stop. But we'll try to get as much as we can. So with that, let's get started, and a big thank you to you for giving us the time.
Welcome, Ananya. I'm so looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, Pehla question. We are sitting at the beautiful Nasscom office. To our viewers, or sare like me, I don't belong to the tech sector. I don't have training in this sector. Nasscom exactly karta kya hai? What does it do?
The $1 million question. Think of Nasscom as the voice of the tech industry in India. India is very blessed to have a very diverse tech industry. We have Indian companies that are multinationals in their own rights, like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, HCL, etc. Then we have nearly all the tech multinational companies, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, all of them in India, right? India is not just one of their largest markets, but India is also one of their largest innovation hubs, right? Then we have SMEs, we have startups, we have such brilliant tech startups in India. And we also have a lot of foreign companies, Fortune 500 companies, that come to India for their R&D because of our talent, right? So we have a very, very diverse and very rich tech ecosystem. Nasscom think of it as the glue that connects the entire ecosystem, that brings it all together, that gives it a voice, that works with the industry, with government to ensure that this industry, if it continues to grow and continues to play a key role in India's growth. We are really around 8% relative GDP of India. We hire over 5 million people directly. Yeah.
So it's almost like Nasscom is a bridge between all these companies, this entire sector, and policy and the government?
Is a catalyst. I see it as a catalyst.
Right. Okay. So then you're very well placed to explain to us. And of course, in bits and bits, people understand what Digital India is. If they don't understand it in theory, anybody who's using the JAM Trinity is, invariably living and breathing Digital India. But suppose aaj se 50 saal baad India ki, modern renaissance ki history likhe, and the big chapter is on digital transformation in India. Like, from that perspective and from a top level view, what really encompasses Digital India, and what are some of the key pillars of digital transformation that you would like to highlight that you see have taken place in the past 10 years with India as the...
So very simply, Digital India is an experience where technology has pretty much invisibly become a core part of our lives. We stopped thinking about it. I'll give you one example. Recently, ek mahine pehle, I was in Germany. No? So I was hungry. So I wanted to go out and get something good to eat from the thing. Like in India, I picked up my phone. Wallet to India, we don't even think about carrying our wallets, right? I didn't even think about my wallet. I just picked up my phone, went to the shop, saw something nice, and then I'm looking for the QR code to pay, and the shopkeeper's wondering what on earth am I up to, right? And then I realized, oh my God, this is not India. I have to go back and get my wallet, right? That is Digital India, where we have become, users of technology, and we don't, in literally everything we do, and we do not even realize it. And that's the beauty, right? They say when technology gets really good, it becomes invisible. A user shouldn't have to think that they're using technology.
They shouldn't be conscious about.
Yeah, and that's what's happening in India today, right? It's almost invisible in our lives. We use it for entertainment. We use it for shopping. We use it for education. We use it for health. We use it for sending money to people, right? Pretty much every single transaction we have in a day is enabled by technology. And the best part of it is we've stopped realizing it. And that to me is Digital India, right? Where technology is weaved into the core fabric of the economy.
Right. And as you said, it's an experience, and it's a seamless experience. So when we talk about Digital India, and at times, intuitively, आपको लगता है technology is for the elite and is possibly more urban. And of course, in India, I mean, as an anchor, I understand that this doesn't hold true. So if you could tell me, like, suppose कोई आपके गांव का, there's a small marginal farmer, किसान भाई है आपका, how would you, and he comes up and asks you कि ma'am, what is it in Digital India? मेरे लिए क्या है? How do you sell Digital India to a farmer in India?
So one of our startups, Nico Robotics, he is in the business of using AI, artificial intelligence, to help farmers figure out how much fertilizer do they really need to use and where. Okay? Now, what happens in day-to-day life of a farmer? When they have to spray fertilizer, they can't figure out which plant really needs it in a field, right? It's like a classroom. A teacher's teaching. It's very difficult in a classroom of 50, 60 kids for the teacher to figure out which kid needs individual attention, right? She will come, complete a class, same lecture to all 50, 60 and go. In most cases, there are some teachers who are different, but in most cases. Similarly, a farmer, when they spray fertilizers, will just spray across, right? Which is not good for the farmer because it costs him a lot more money. Not good for us because there are a lot of plants that don't need fertilizers or may not need it, right? So what Nico does is it uses artificial intelligence to identify where's the problem, where do you really need to spray, and how much. And it does the spraying, right? Now, Jay, who's the CEO of Nico Robotics, I was talking to him. I was like, what does this mean to a farmer? So where's the aha? So he said the aha happens when he opens the tank and he realizes after one full spray across the field, there is more than half of the tank still there. The fertilizer is still there. And he's like, this has just saved me so much.
Yeah.
Right? From a financial perspective, this is huge. Right? That is how technology is getting ingrained into the grassroots of India. It is solving day-to-day problems of whether you're a farmer, you're a teacher, you're a carpenter, but it is looking at specific problems it can solve and solve well. so that it has an impact on livelihood and, of course, convenience, right? Those are the two things that it has to impact. And that is, the Indian tech mantra. There's a lot of talk about what is the Indian tech mantra, right? That is the Indian tech mantra, and I love it because it is completely the opposite of how the Western world thinks about technology and innovation. Mostly. In most cases, when you look at Western innovation, it starts at the top.
So it's top down.
It starts for the richest, or it starts for the most urban, most sophisticated audience. And then they will figure out how do you scale it down, right? And it's usually you cut off a few features here, there, and you bring down costs and see how it scales, right? What are we doing in India? Whether it is DPI, we think of UPI, we think of any of these applications, we are looking at the last mile. We are looking at the woman who is furthest away, and does this impact her? Can she use it, and does this impact her life? And then thinking about what's the role technology can play, how can it play, how can it solve that problem, and then scaling it up, right? This is incredibly hard. This is much harder than innovating for the top and then scaling down. But I'm so glad and I'm so proud that we have chosen this route, and which is so obvious, especially in the way we've rolled out the digital public good infrastructure in India. We are, and this is what ensures that we are truly not leaving anyone behind when it comes to technology. We are not just the world's largest digital transformation taking place, but we are the world's largest digital transformation taking place that is leaving no person behind. Truly inclusive, right? I think that's why the impact will be so much more, because if you look at the scale we are able to get in India, population level scale, billion plus scale.
Right.
Don't see that anywhere else. And that's going to be the power of India. That's the impact that India will deliver.
Right. No, thanks for actually explaining what that tech mantra really is. And you spoke about impact of technology on women. So a question again on that, how has the life of a woman changed because of technology? If in simple terms, पिछले 10 साल में एक lady का, एक महिला का, एक adolescent girl का, how has her life changed? Which I'm sure a lot of, as you said, it's an experience. People might not even realize. But in what ways have the lives of women changed as far as technology infusion and infusion of digital India is concerned?
So, one of the programs government runs is called CSC, Common Service Center. One of my favorite programs, okay, because they're at the grassroots. They're in every district, in every village, and they are the first access to technology for a lot of people. So I'd been asked to come and see some of these CSCs a while back, and I remember I went down to a village in Telangana, nearly around 2 hours drive from Hyderabad. There was a remote village, and they said, there's a CSC there. I was in Telangana for something, and I said, chalo, I'll drive and see it. So when I reached the CSC, and it's through these gullies, the car can't even go in, so park the car, walk through the village, and these small gullies, and then suddenly you have the CSC. And then I see like 50 women sitting outside. Okay, then like, what's going on? And I stopped to just observe the scene because it was very strange. I had expected kids. I had not expected women sitting outside. And then I saw one going in, and after like 5-10 minutes, she would come out and the other would go in. So then I walked in, and the CSC was run by a woman, amazing woman, and I asked her what's going on. And she said, ma'am, we have taught them how to open bank accounts, right? And we have taught them how to put money in bank accounts and also check. Now, every household, the woman will come here every morning and check how much is the balance, because earlier they had no control. Now they will know if the husband has withdrawn any money without telling them to do something or whatever, but she has got control back. And that was such an amazing statement, right? Because I was speaking to a lot of the ladies there, and I remember one, she was a grandma. She was around 56 and she had 3 sons or something. And I remember her telling me, and she had tears in her eyes when she was talking about it. But she said, she grabbed me, and there was a language issue because I couldn't speak her language, so the lady was translating. But she was very excited in saying something, and she grabbed me and she took me to her computer. And the reason they were waiting and going, because the CSC only had at that time 2 computers. So they had to take turns, right? So she grabbed me to the computer, and then she furiously typed something, and she had typed her name. And she said, "This is the first time I can write my name."
Wow.
And then I was telling her, "Why is this so important for you, checking your bank account?" She said, "Because earlier my husband would do whatever he wants with our savings.
Yep.
I wouldn't know. Now he knows that I can come here and check." So
Your accountability also.
and I make sure if any even 1 rupee gets spent, I can go and question them. Why did you spend it? Where did you spend it? Right? I think, see, 2 things. One, that empowerment where you can write your name. We take it for granted. I think it means a lot. Just that empowerment, right? I have my identity, and I can share that identity. Second, the biggest empowerment of our lives is financial. If you are financially empowered, you're financially independent, you are free to make whatever choices you want. I think this was a step towards that, where at least she's in control of the finances. She knows what is going on. This is a very simple example. But to me, this is how technology is changing lives. This is how technology is changing lives in women. It's education, it's financial independence, it's true empowerment, but it's simple little things that make such a big difference to their lives.
Right. And that's a great real story, which sort of exemplifies what's the kind of impact Digital India can have. Now, going back, like zooming back again, you travel around the world and you talk to state heads and to their industry heads. I'm sure you'd be asked a question, always be asked a question about what are really the pillars of the digital infrastructure that India has built. How would you answer that question to them? Like, what do we really mean? What are the pillars of that infrastructure, which might not be visible, but what are they?
It's an ecosystem, the way I see it. It's truly an ecosystem that has come together. First, you have a population that is very young and that is tech savvy. Most of the young Indians are brought up with technology. They're true digital natives, even if it's a feature phone, but they're brought up with technology. Technology doesn't scare them. For example, when the pandemic happened and every country was going into lockdown, not only the young people, but even our mothers and our grandmothers were figuring out how to use technology, right? Whereas there were so many countries where people were struggling to use. But I always say Indians take to technology like fish takes to water. We have a strong connect with technology. So that is the starting point for me, right? We have a very, very tech savvy and tech friendly population. They don't scare easy. In fact, there was a research recently across different countries as to who's most scared of AI. I think India was the least scared, or at least in the top 3 of least scared countries, right? So first is that. And because we have a young population, we have a very strong pool of digital talent. People who know how to use technology and can use it, right, well. And therein lies our biggest differentiator, because the technology piece is commoditized. There's no differentiation. You can have access to the same technology as I will, right? Where does the differentiation come in? It's the people. It's the people who use the technology to build solutions. And I think therein India has a huge advantage because we have very strong digital talent, right? So to me, that's a very, very important piece. Then you have your infrastructure stack, right? And I think what Nandan has done is fantastic, the way he has created and conceptualized India's stack. And then, of course, government helps scale it out so significantly, where, it starts with the ID. Every Indian has an ID. and digital ID. So therefore, digital transactions become tremendously easy because all of us have our own unique digital ID, right? Then you have the payment infrastructure, because payment is at the heart of all transactions. So, and the beauty of our payment infrastructure is it's completely interoperable. You can be a bank, I can be UPI, and I can be Paytm, and we can talk. I can send money to you, whether it's your bank account, whether it's your GPay, whatever, right? So that interoperability is fantastic. And then, of course, you have the data layer, right? Where the data that is getting collected is being used for insights, and it is being used by consent. It's a consent-based layer. So I think these are the basic, I won't call it pillars, because pillars means in silo, and technology's worst enemy is silo. But stack, yes. Infrastructure, yes. And I think the ecosystem is how I see it, which is people, talent, and then, you have your identity, you have the payment layer, and you have your data layer on top of that. And I think all of that comes beautifully together on the design principles of inclusion, interoperability, security, and responsibility. So these are sort of the four must-haves when you look at all the solutions that get built on top of this.
Right. Okay, so assuming this is in place, now how does this interact with the economy? Like, if, simply put, digital India का impact economy पर क्या होता है? And if you can give us some numbers in terms of, so that we understand how this is an important or an integral part of Indian economy, and what are the nature of interactions?
So let me ask you a question. In lockdown, would you have survived without Zomato or any of the food apps? Would you have been able to work and continue to work? Could offices have stayed open without all the video VC apps that we saw? Would you have been able to go back to work without your vaccine? How did you get your vaccine? What do you use to get your vaccine? So this is where I say technology has become invisible in India. We can't do a thing without it today. It's part of our lives. Your podcast, how is it reaching people?
Right. We probably as Indians take it for granted.
We do take it for granted, which is good, which is a great privilege, which shows how strong digital India is. Because we don't even think about it anymore. It's part of our lives. It's our lifestyle. It's how we live our lives, right? And therefore, it's an ingrained part of the Indian economy. I don't think you can separate the two.
Is digital India job intensive? Can it provide, of course it can provide jobs, but what is the scale of potential impact it can have on employment in the country?
I look at it a little differently, that question, right? Because digital India is where traditional India is leveraging technology to be more productive, to be more effective, and to be more inclusive, right? So it's if you're talking about manufacturing, you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about agriculture. In the framework of Digital India, each of these sectors are now trying to figure out what is the best way for me to weave in technology into what I do, what problems do I solve, so that I can be way more productive. The basic promise of technology, and especially artificial intelligence, is that it adds a layer of productivity to every industry. Right? So when you are looking at being, leveraging technology to be more productive, etc., you will have to, the job question is not an either or question, right? That's why I'm sort of thinking how to answer this in the best way possible. Yeah. What happens? I think the job question is a little different question. The question that everyone's worried about is, with over-dependence on technology, will we stop depending on humans?
Will it take away jobs?
Will it take away jobs? Now, every time there's been a new transformation, technology transformation, start with steam engines. When steam engines came out, everyone was worried that, oh my God, what will happen? What will happen to the horse carriage, the people who used to drive those horse carriages, etc., etc. What will happen to the horse carriages? And there was a lot of concern, right? So with every new technology, some level of displacement takes place. Because when you make something more productive and effective, you can't be doing the same thing you've done in the past. Something has to change. And when something changes, the jobs change, right? So there is levels of displacement. But what we have seen till now with every new technology, it creates more opportunities or more jobs than what it displaces. And we expect the same with artificial intelligence, right? The question then is, are you skilling your people fast enough for these changes? And what are you doing to ensure that your digital talent pool that you have is relevant? They have the new skills. And that's what the focus has to be.
You spoke about AI. And as you rightly said, technology is so infused into our lives that increasingly people are thinking about their data privacy, their data security, cyber security. And it's a real thing. And you've also spoken about not making AI safe, but building safe AI. So what do you think the sector, the government in this case, because it's a multi-stakeholder investment.
Has to be.
Yeah. So my next question to you is on data security. Are we doing enough for promoting data security? Because, of course, technology is so well infused and people are concerned about data privacy, data security. Is enough being done by the sector, by the government to protect our data?
So I think people are concerned more about privacy. It's a privacy issue, like how much of my data is out there and who has access to my data. I think I mentioned this earlier. The beauty of the India model is it's a consent-based approach. So you decide where you want to share your data and how much you want to share, right? So I think as long as the rights remain with the civilians, right, remains with citizens, that's the best way to approach, because a lot, and privacy has a cultural context. Privacy in India can mean something very different from privacy in the West or privacy in, say, China. It has very, very different meanings, right? Contextual. In our culture, sharing is very common. So therefore, privacy is very different for us, right? So you have to decide what you want to share, how much you want to share, and how much you don't want to share. Privacy also changes based on generation. Like the next generation will, my nieces and nephews, they will tell me that convenience is more important. Right. For us, convenience is way more important because we're anyway there. We live in the digital world, right? So what I think the Indian data protection, the thinking behind the DPDP is it provides that framework where you are able to decide what you need to do, when you need to do it, how you need to do. Both is, from an industry perspective, and of course the right to data privacy remains with the citizen. It is their data and they decide. So I think those principles are very sound.
Okay, all right. A second question on AI. What's India doing as far as AI is concerned in terms of India's leadership in the space of AI? Is it all American-led? Like, what is it that the Indian tech sector, how invested is it in AI? And whether or not the environment, is it supportive enough to promote incubation of safe AI?
So very different questions, and I'm going to break it up a bit. So you're talking about Indian, leadership, AI leadership, right? Today, a country or company who controls the AI value chain will lead. And most of that control today lies in US and with big tech, right? And that's well known. And they were the ones who invested. They were the ones who went in early and made the big investments and built it from silicon to cloud to models two applications, right? Now, as countries come into play, they have to figure out where do they want to play and how do you differentiate leadership, right? Because copying what has already happened is not the right solution. Takes a lot of money, takes a lot of time, and honestly, may not be needed, right? So I think this is where India has to figure out where does it want to play. I think, based on my understanding of the industry and my understanding, a little bit of understanding of India, I think there are a few areas we should absolutely go all out to lead in. One, building the talent. The talent is what will be needed by the world to create solutions for AI. As I said, talent is the differentiation. India has to become the talent hub for AI, for the world, right? And we can. We absolutely can. So I think talent is going to be critical for us to build. We have a very strong startup ecosystem. We have very strong tech industry with tremendous prowess. And I think we need to figure out how do we become really good in using AI to solve specific problems. So we may not, sure, from a government perspective, or few companies may want to build large language models and should, that capture Indian languages, Indian culture. It is important for India to invest, I think, at least in one large language model that truly captures our language and culture, because that'll be important. But then for the industry, for our startups, what will be important is to leverage it and to figure out how to really build specific solutions for problems in healthcare, insurance, finance, education, manufacturing, etc. I think we have to get really, really good at it. That is what will lead to mass-scale deployment of artificial intelligence, and that is what will lead to unlocking the promise of AI, which is enhanced productivity. So India can definitely get good at that. India can also get very good at deployment at scale. We can pick a few sectors and figure out how do we ensure that we deploy AI at scale for the highest possible impact in these sectors. So like this, and of course we have to invest in R&D. In fact, that's an area where we are lagging and we have to do a lot more. But we have to invest in R&D to figure out how to make not just AI safer, but also much more sustainable. Right. So, a lot of work ahead of us. But we have to be clever in how we play this game.
I'm going back to an article you recently wrote. In fact, Prime Minister also tweeted that article, and the headline...
And more than tweet, I believe he read the article. Which, made my day.
Cool. Absolutely. See how the lingo also changes, right? So the headline of the article, and what I understood was we've all heard about Incredible India, and you wrote about and introduced the whole idea of inevitable India. Please break that down for the audience.
It is amazing today when you speak to company CEOs, global CEOs, you speak to governments. Today, everybody, all of us, one of the biggest priorities we have is to think through future supply chain strategies, because that's the big question everyone has. How do I build supply chain resilience in a world which is getting increasingly fragmented, right? How do I ensure that I build the right partnerships which can make my business much more resilient than what it is today, right? So when you talk to, and this is a conversation I love having with people because it is so interesting to understand how they're thinking about it. And as I was traveling around, I was in US, then I was in parts of Europe, this is one question I was asking everyone. And it was amazing how every time they would talk about how they are reimagining or rethinking their strategies, it was amazing how India was one of the first names to come up, right? That we're thinking of planning to do this in India. We are planning to expand in India. We are planning to go to India. We're planning to build our partnerships or our collaboration with India much more. I don't think there was a single conversation where India did not come up. So on my way back on the flight from Germany, I was down with fever actually, and maybe that helped write that article. But I was like really down with fever, and I was thinking about this, and then so I suddenly realized that, today we are inevitable in every conversation. And Harvard had actually written this article sometime back where they had talked about if India had to redo that Incredible India campaign, what would it call itself? And they had actually first introduced the term of inevitable India, but they hadn't built it out much, but they had talked about it. And I was thinking about that yes, we are inevitable in every conversation. And what is more important is why. Why are we inevitable? And if you think of it, there are three key transitions that's shaping the world today. The digital transformation or transition, or the AI transition, the supply chain transformation, and then, of course, the transformation to green energy. These are the top three transformations that everyone is focused on today. And when you think of each of these transformations, India is so uniquely poised and so beautifully poised in each of these. Digital transformation, we are one of the few countries of scale that has shown how digital transformation is possible at scale, truly inclusive, truly responsible, and interoperable.
Right.
We are not building monopolies. We are creating ecosystems where everyone has equal play. We are level playing the field, which is so important, and the world is taking notice, right? You think about supply chain transition and you look at our position today in Asia, in the global south, the voice that we are building. You look at the voice we are building in BRICS, right? And you see the impact that it has in terms of today trade is about supply chains. And you think and look at the impact it has on reimagining future supply chain resilience, right? We are absolutely critical, a critical player. And then, of course, when you think about the green transition, we are once again one of the few countries of scale that has tremendously bold ambition, and that's saying that in a few years, 1/3 of our energy will be renewable energy, right? All of these are adding to the perception of inevitable India. That's what's making us inevitable. It's not just, a large country, good at tech, but it's very strategic. You have to go down a bit and think through. And I think these three transitions are coming beautifully in place for India to have not just, I think we've had our moment in the sun for a while, but I think to really play a very crucial role in maybe bringing together the world.
Right, and giving it a model that's inclusive, that provides level playing field, as you said. What about women in tech? Like, if you talk about the Indian crucible, how would you describe the role of women in promoting technology, using technology? How would you see that, both as consumers and as well as, constituents of the tech sector itself?
See, our industry is one of the most diverse industries in the world. The Indian tech industry has, at entry level, more than half of new people who join the industry are women. So we have, at entry level, it's about 50%. At an average, I think it's about 36%, which is excellent. But again, miles to go before we sleep. We have to do more work at the top level, but that's a top priority of every board and every CEO in the tech industry. How do we increase the numbers at the top, right? The tech industry, it's not about women in tech. The tech industry, in order to be successful, in order to be sustainable, in order to be profitable, needs diversity of ideas, needs diversity of thinking. And therefore, it has to embrace diversity for business success. It's not about checking off the diversity box. That it doesn't excite anyone anymore.
We've gone past.
It's a business goal for us. We have to embrace diversity, and it's not just gender. We have to embrace diversity, and we have to ensure we are building truly inclusive spaces where different voices are being heard. because that is what's needed for our future. That is what's needed for our success, right? So I think in today's world, it's no more about what are women doing, or I think we have to change the conversation, right? We really have to change the conversation. Women are more than 50% of this world. Period. Let's if someone has a problem with that, too bad. We are half the population. We have to be included in every aspect of economic growth, because if we are not, then you are fighting a war with half the army sitting at home. And you can't be doing that, right? So therefore, the focus has to be, how do we make it truly inclusive? And I think India has done pretty well on driving inclusion at every level, right? Whether it is financial independence, whether it is education, whether it is even changing cultural mindsets, which is incredibly difficult. But the entire campaign, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, was about changing mindsets, right? So I think we are doing the right things at every level. We now have to move towards becoming an equal opportunity country, an equal opportunity industry for sure, where if an opportunity exists, it should go to whoever has the best talent. The gender should not matter.
Yeah.
That is what is needed. And I do believe if we can achieve that in our industry, women will rock, because they really have they have excellent skills.
Right. My final question to you. Previously, in your previous avatars, you have also been sort of been part of the private sector, and now you're part of this sort of Nasscom, where you're also speaking on behalf of the private sector and working probably more closely with the government in terms of, as you said, as a catalyst. In both the roles, what have you seen, or what have you observed or learned about from Prime Minister's own leadership style, like his own work style, his own ethics, and where do you see, like from a very objective, apolitical lens, where do you see his leadership has possibly played the role of a catalyst to really push the digital India vision, to really push the digital transformation, which we understand is a multi-stakeholder, it's a product of various factors, but where do you think his leadership has really sort of played the role?
I love his take on technology. Every time I get a chance to have a conversation, there's always something new to learn, because he thinks of technology like, I don't know, even I do that because I'm not an engineer. So I think of technology from a user point of view. It's what is technology solving? What problem is it solving? What does it do? And I think that's the best way to think about technology, because then you're really pushing the boundaries of innovation. Then you're saying, okay, can it really do this? Why can't it solve that problem? So I just love how he thinks about technology and how he thinks of it as an enabler, right? At least that's my observation. He sees it as an enabler. He sees it as a very powerful enabler. And the questions and the conversations he has is always about unlocking its full potential. What is needed, right? What do you have to do with talent? How much talent do you have to build? What kind of ecosystem has to come in place? The second thing I've observed is his ability to really see what maybe others are not seeing, and have that big vision, that vision of ensuring that every single person is enabled or empowered by technology, right? And to ensure that the last woman, the woman who's sitting furthest away, is not left out of it, right? That comes from him, actually. How do you ensure that he thinks very big, and it often takes us by surprise, because how do we achieve that, right? But it's wonderful because he has that ability to think big and throw those big goals in terms of what India should really aspire for.
Yeah.
And he loves technology. I mean, it's amazing how in tune he is with all the latest happenings in technology and what's going on. And so I think he's a user. I don't know, but it feels like he is, because the way he talks about technology, he definitely knows what he's talking about. So, and I think a lot of the Digital India vision actually comes from him, is his vision of ensuring that India is able to leverage technology to truly drive inclusive growth and progress, is what Digital India is today.
Right. Now, I think before we wrap up, to the tech geeks who might be watching this podcast, tell us some 2 or 3 top trends in the tech sector that we can, from the Indian perspective, that we should watch out for.
I think next year is going to be all about artificial intelligence still. Even this year was. But this year was like peak hype. There was so much talk. I mean, it's just amazing how many keynotes one has to give on artificial intelligence, or speeches one has to give on artificial.
Even the Dada Nanis are asking, AI kya hai?
AI kya hai, right? Everybody is talking artificial intelligence. So I hope that we have hit the peak hype this year. Because when you hit the peak, after that comes a valley. And the valley of reality, as
the real deal starts
right?
now.
And I really hope and pray that we will now hit the valley of reality for artificial intelligence, where we have to focus on how do we make it work? How do we apply it to solve problems? How do we apply it at scale? What role does it play in manufacturing? What role does it play in agriculture? What role does it play in healthcare? And how do you apply it in scale? So I think there's a lot of work ahead of us to figure out what the right applications are and deploying it at scale. So I really hope that 2024 is about deployment of artificial intelligence at scale. And, this technology surprises everyone. You can never predict. If anyone tells you they can predict what's going to happen, do not believe them. Because they do not know. This technology is really surprising us. But as we rapidly advance, I think it's important to remind ourselves that we humans are still in control. We have to decide how much we want it to advance and where do we want it to stop. We cannot give up that control. That's one of my biggest fears. I think we have to bring in human accountability much more, even though it's not a fancy trend, but I think it's a must do. We have to bring back the focus on human accountability much more than we have. We talk about AI as if it's a person. We are humanizing AI. AI is not a person, and we are in control of figuring out how fast we want it to advance. And what exactly we wanted to do. And I think that accountability has to be brought back. We have to make ourselves responsible. And while we continue to talk about aligning AI with human values, I think this is where it's also important to take a step back and see how aligned are humans with human values, or all humans with human values, right? Because if we all were, we wouldn't be having a lot of these problems, right? So I think next year is going to be about deployment at scale. And when you deploy at scale, you have to focus a lot more on security, responsibility. So these things will take precedence. And last but not the least, we really have to make human accountability count. It is us who are making the decisions. Behind every smart algorithm is a smarter human. And we cannot forget that.
I think on that note, that's a wrap, because we leave our audiences with the note that I think as humans, we need to sort of, first of all, zoom out and take a stock of what are the human values that we are sort of saving and preserving.
That would be definitely a good thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a wrap.
Thanks, Atal.
Hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I'll now leave you back to your Monday schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maz. Thank you.